Hello, everybody. I am Neon, and I'm joined today by Action Jackson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Wagwan.
Yeah. So today we actually have an interesting exercise I was thinking about doing. Spending some time working on deck building. In this intermediate time that we have between now and the beta coming out, and I thought that Jackson here would be a great guy to get on to do some of this because you are particularly focused on constructed, right?
That's true, and it looks like you're maybe doing green-black, which is funny because I think I might be the only person playing that deck.
Oh,
so,
cool.
There you go.
Yeah, because this was something that basically, like, what I had as the idea for this is I had kind of an idea for a deck, a bit of a sketch out for a deck, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put this, just the beginnings of it out and discuss it with you, and then we can kind of build from there and go through some of my questions about various card choices and what you would be interested in, and then you can give me your insight as to what if I'm thinking about things correctly, and hopefully that process will be interesting to people. And of course, anybody who's interested in commenting of, oh, I think this is wrong, or oh, what about this decision, we'd love to get all of those questions and suggestions in the comments below. So of course, share that as actively as you like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think Neon is the one fielding all those questions, so feel free to send as many hateful ones as you want. I won't be dealing with any of them, so it works for me.
Hey, I'll be posting your Twitter in the comments too, so you can get your fair share.
Oh no.
Okay.
It's all gone horribly wrong.
So the idea that I had for this was just a green-black kind of mid-range deck. The reasoning why is because people have kind of said that it isn't a particular popular archetype in the beta right now, but I kind of feel like there's a lot of powerful tools in the deck. I don't know exactly how to kind of finish it, though, in many respects. So I'll just talk through to you right now of what I thought was the core for it. So the heroes are Bounty Hunter, Omni Knight, Phantom Assassin from the flop, then Drow Ranger, which is a really good 4-position hero because it ensures that you can get into the third lane. And then Lich as the top end. So my thinking about this deck is that it's kind of grindy value deck. It has a lot of these value attachments like Mist of Avernus, Cheating Death, Ironfog Goldmine, and then you can also gain some extra gold through track, etc. And then also just getting the 3 copies of the Hourglass in the shop as well is an interesting way to accumulate this value going on into a late game. Lich is also another great way to accumulate some value in the game. So that was kind of like what I was thinking about as being the core of the deck. There's a few questions that I kind of have about this, but how about you just kind of give me your thoughts so far as to what you're seeing in the deck?
So, I've been experimenting with green-black mid-range a lot. I said I was the only one playing green-black. It's not entirely true. There's at least one other person I know of who's playing green-black.
Sure.
They're actually playing a green-black aggro deck.
Okay.
Which is pretty different than the list that I'm running, which is more of a mid-range thing. You have 3 of the same heroes as me. Can you guess which 2 I don't have?
The ones that I was the most questionable about was Omni Knight and Lich.
All right, so those 2 are in.
Oh,
I
really?
got those 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Bounty Hunter, then, would be my next guess?
Bounty Hunter is not on the list.
Yeah,
That's accurate.
Yeah. And, I mean, so you're cutting one of Phantom Assassin or Drow. That's surprising. Because
it is.
Those are the ones that are considered to be the best of both of those heroes. So what's the one that you're cutting?
So actually, the hero that I've cut out of your 5 is Drow, which might surprise a lot of people. I think pretty typically considered to be one of the best heroes. That being said, I am experimenting with 2 versions of this list. The one which I've seen the most success with does not feature Drow. It actually features Treant Protector in position of Drow. But I have been trying the Drow list too, and it's certainly not terrible. The main reason why I am not running Drow is because she's quite fragile. Mm-hmm. And, the other hero that I'm running is also very fragile, but has a uniquely awesome spell for the deck that I think I would rather have. And then Treant provides a sort of level of robustness to your board, which my mid-range deck actually runs quite a lot of creatures. So that additional armor passive plus having an additional creep from Treant is actually pretty useful too.
Okay, so then I'm not sure if you can share with us if what one of your substitutions is, but if you can't, that's fine.
I can. I'm just building up to it. I'm trying to leave some tension in the moment.
Yeah, I definitely feeling the tension. So what is it? So you have then Phantom Assassin, Lich, Omni Knight, Treant Protector. So that's 2 green, 2 black. I feel like probably, is it going to be for a 3 green or 2? Is it a green or black hero?
It's a black hero.
Okay, just let me know. I really don't have.
All right. So this is a hero that I think everyone is pretty massively underrating. I certainly don't think that they are unilaterally strong in every blacklist, but in something mid-rangey or tempo-y, I'm a big fan of this card. I'm actually using Lion as the 5th hero.
Oh, right. You do have a thing for Lion, don't you?
I do. So I think, I've actually got a first episode of a podcast I recorded coming out sometime soon, hopefully, where I talk about this a little bit more. But basically, Lion has the best tempo spell in the game. Okay. It is crazy good to essentially have to invest 0 mana, but take mana away from your opponent. If you are heading into, the 6 mana turn, you're facing annihilations, maybe even earlier on in the game, keep in mind this is a 2 mana spell, right? Earlier on in the game, if you're playing against red-green ramp, a list that was proved very popular in the most recent and successful in the most recent tournament that was had, being able to surprise your opponent by removing some portion of that mana is actually very, very effective at keeping your mid-range threats alive whilst you wait to maybe draw your cheat deaths. And additionally, I'm actually running Tyler Estate Sensor and doubling up on the mana reduction effects.
Okay. So. That kind of makes... I can see that as being something that I've sort of thought about a little bit, that there might be a strategy that works in that line that's a bit of a mana denial sort of thing. But this is going to... my main... initial thought for that build of the deck was maybe a blue-black version of the deck, but sounds like you're going the green-black version that's a little bit more mid-range as opposed to all-in on the prison style of gameplay.
Yeah, and part of the reason I'm doing that is because in this mid-range deck, I'm running Ravenous Mass and Lich, and both of those things benefit quite a lot from the cheating death effect. My list is definitely kind of out there. I have, on ladder at least seen a lot of success with it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play in the most recent tournament. Had I been able to, I would have tried this out in a more competitive environment. Yeah. But certainly it's been pretty good for me so far. And, people underestimate Lion's capability as a fighter too. Something to realize about heroes in general, right, in Artifact, is that half of the heroes you're going to run into on average are, black or blue. And both of those colors don't have robust heroes. Mm-hmm. Like they, who in blue can actually one-shot Lion? Mm-hmm. Who in blue won't die to Lion in one shot, especially if there's a Mists of Avernus in play. Same thing in black, right? Like 6 health kills, I think, every single black hero other than Phantom Assassin and Bounty Hunter, right? So in actuality, the 6/5, sure, maybe it trades. Okay, that's certainly a real possibility. But because we're running green also, there's certain things we can do to mess that dynamic up.
Interesting. Okay, so that's another possibility direction for the deck, and I'd be interested to talk and see what that actually looks like later on. But let's focus on this one then for now. So one of my questions of looking at this deck, you kind of are getting the idea of what I'm putting down, right? Of what I'm trying to do with this deck. Mm-hmm. So one of my questions is, it was whether Omni Knight is the most appropriate for the position that he's playing. One of the other ones that I was thinking about was the Treant Protector. They're very similar in many respects, but Omni Knight does just have better stats, which is probably what I want here, I think.
The card and the active of Omni Knight are also pretty far superior. Treant, the primary reason why you'd run Treant is in addition to Omni Knight. He's kind of a tier below. I think Enchantress is a reasonable include also in certain decks in place of one of those two. The thing, though, about Enchantress is that the improvement is much more costly, even if the effect is quite strong. So anyway, I actually, if I was looking at your list as it currently stands, I think your hero selection is fine. The only one that I would even consider changing is Bounty Hunter, because one of Green's most powerful effects, especially in a mid-rangey style of deck, is actually Corrosive Mist.
Oh, okay.
And I think if you're going too heavy on the gold plan, maybe we're going Revtel, right? Like that's a possibility. But if we're not, I don't see us wanting to having too clear a plan for our gold.
Okay.
Essentially.
So, and that was another thing that I was thinking about too, because I like the idea of getting some early gold, buying an hourglass, and slowing down my opponent a bit and accumulating some value that way. But you're thinking that, because I was wondering if we are going this economic plan with something like Bounty Hunter, is it that we have to go all the way in, get something like Vesture of the Tyrant, get something like Horn of the Alpha, and really go hard, or just not bother at all?
Well, so if you paid attention to the Artifact Shark tournament that happened, one of the decks in the top 8 by a player named Vin Kelsier was actually a no item gold deck in red and green. And I have some sort of speculation around the fact that perhaps black-green could accomplish that goal better as a mid-range skew, because you still get the benefit of Revtel Convoy, even if you don't have Mercenary Exiles. But you also get to generate much more gold much more quickly. And, in that kind of deck, actually having access to consumables every turn is a big boon, right? Because they essentially provide tempo. You can kind of think of the consumable shop as, optional combat tricks that you can buy at will. That's kind of the way that I think about it. And similarly, some of the 3 gold items function in that way sometimes.
Cool. Okay. So, so in that sense, if we were going down that route, though, of actually going hard in econ, we would want to have the payday. I don't think that we need it here right now, though, as what we have. But I guess maybe the place to go next is one of my questions I've always had, looking at especially green and black are the 2 colors that I've felt this the most, is what are some of the main deck cards that you are like thinking about of want to include in your decks? Because there are a bunch of creeps that all seem good, but it's hard for me to identify which ones are the ones that stand out as being like, yes, this is the one that I want to have in my deck. This is the ones I want to prioritize versus, and with black at the same time, there's a bunch of these 4 costs or 3 cost removal spells and damage spells. And I don't know which are the ones that I should be prioritizing to put into my deck.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why no one has really cracked green-black yet in the beta is because there's kind of a lot of directions you can go in. And a lot of the heroes offer pretty unique utility, too. So, for example, Lich is kind of black's finisher card in a lot of ways. Sniper can function similarly. PA is very tempo-oriented, so is Lion. Sorla Khan's a very aggressive card. Like, a lot of the heroes in black really don't fit into a generalist category of, being useful in lots of archetypes, whereas something like Drow Ranger kind of does. I think she's a little... I actually do think she's the best card in green, to be clear, but I do think she's also overrated.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Simultaneously.
That's possible.
Yeah. So anyway, where I'm going with this is really the kinds of main deck cards that you want in green-black specifically, which is a very utility-heavy archetype. Green is a supporting color and black is a versatile color. A lot of the main deck cards are going to be heavily influenced by the heroes that you're playing. So in the list that you're running, like, I feel probably, you have 2 options. You can kind of take Bounty Hunter and say, okay, we're going Econ, we're picking up Payday, we're picking up Revtel, we're picking up big items, or just sort of middling items to then go with our big gold creep. Or you're going Corrosive Mist and heavy on the Revtels, right? So that's one thing to consider. Like, I think Bounty Hunter is a great example of that utility that Black offers. It's pretty unique. Like, it's uniquely economy focused, and if your deck isn't leaning into that, I don't think there's any point in playing Bounty Hunter. Okay. I think something like the Lion is much more useful in the general sense for a black mid-range deck. There's one black hero which has not been fully disclosed, so that one is off the table. I think Necrophos might be a little underrated, although I've not had much opportunity to experiment with them. I think if you're not wanting to go Lion and you're not wanting to go Bounty Hunter, I'd actually go 3 green. I think those are definitely your 2 best routes.
Okay, so maybe like switch him out for Treant, maybe.
Possibly. I got to think about what I would want to do if I was going 3 green, because definitely the intent behind the deck changes a little bit, right? Like, firstly, you're probably going to go up to 3 cheating deaths if you run 3 green. That's an obvious main deck consideration. 3 green means your ramp is much more consistent, and so maybe you want to be doing some of that. I actually kind of like, if you're going 3 green, playing kind of an aggressive ramp strategy with Sorlikon as one of your black heroes. That is kind of along the lines of the green-black aggro list that I mentioned before. Essentially, the way I would approach this is to kind of pick your strategy and then work backwards from there, rather than, looking at the heroes and then going forwards, because it's always a little more clear if you're playing to a specific win condition to know what heroes you want to pick.
How about this? How about we drop Bounty? Let's put in Treant Protector. And put him into the flop. Probably still the same positioning that I was describing before, of him just being in the position of that. So we have Omni Knight, Treant Protector, and Phantom Assassin that are coming out in the flop, and then Drow Ranger followed by Lich. Okay, and now we have a more consistent ramp plan. So we probably want to put in the Salamania's Favor.
Yeah, whether you do Salamania's Favor or perhaps Stars Align or perhaps both really depends on what our end game looks like. This deck certainly feels kind of control-y to me. We've got Lich as our top end. It's a pretty solid control card. We have some ramp intrinsic to Treant Protector. There's kind of two ways we could go with that ramp, right? The probably more obvious way is to look at your Emissaries of the Quorum and Thunderhide packs. The slightly less obvious way would be some Steam Cannons, and possibly even Assassin Shadows with a Ravenous Mass. So Assassin Shadow plus Ravenous Mass is kind of a hilarious combo. Not just because you can consume a lot of health, but also because if you play an Assassin Shadow and then Ravenous Mass to reduce your board by 2, it buffs the Assassin Shadow. So sometimes there's interesting stuff you could do there. I think the ramp plan for green-black is a little weaker than green-red, for example, because you're kind of missing
kind of
persistent finisher. Yeah, like maybe I'd even want to go 3-color at this point. I think we're not capitalizing necessarily on the strengths of the colors as mid-range colors. And if we're looking at ramp, then having some kind of Bolt, Incarnation of Salamene, Time of Triumph package as your finisher is pretty interesting. Yeah, with this hero lineup, I think I'd give it a shot. I'd go for the Steam Cannon option.
Okay, let's go that way.
Yeah. I like that card. I think it's a little underrated right now. I would put in 3 Corrosive Mists and 3 Rev
How many Steam Cannons are you thinking?
We might have a lot of ramp. So let's put in 3 for now, and we can cut later if we need to. And maybe I'd go for like 1 or 2 Stars Aligns.
Sure.
And then let's see. Yeah, Corrosive Mist. Definitely a couple to a few of those. You know, I actually think Roseleaf Rejuvenator is a little bit underrated too. I kind of like that in this list. We're playing Control, essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 of those could be good.
And then the Corrosive Mist. You said 2 Corrosive Mist?
Yeah, let's try that for now. And then I would take out the Iron Fog Gold Mines. I don't think you necessarily want those in this game plan. Right. And I would put in some removal in black. Probably in this list, Pick Off is quite nice, because maybe late game you get to Pick Off plus Steam Cannon, cross lane to kill a blue hero.
Okay.
We do not have Initiative right now, but we do have Cheating Death. Can kind of compensate for that. Probably go 3 Pick Off here, and then maybe even 1 gank. I like that we're going for the cross lane thing. I'd consider even swapping Lich out for Sniper. And we've got kind of a cross lane controlling green-black list at that point.
So my concern is with one of my interests in Lich is that it does give me at least some semblance of ability to board clear. Like, for instance, getting Hunt the Weak or whatever it is, like Hunt the Weak, getting hit by the Hounds of War. Having access to Chain Frost means that I at least have some response to that kind of action. And I worry that there isn't a lot of AoE effects in this color combination, so I am partly interested in playing Lich for that reason.
So, 2 things. In practice, the only list that really goes wide enough for that to be desirable in that way. Like, typically, where Lich is actually good is not against Prey on the Weak. It's not against those Hounds of War.
Okay.
Where Lich is specifically useful is against mid-rangey decks and control decks, because it lets you clear multiple heroes in the same turn.
Sure.
So, like, let's say that your opponent has like 3 units out. Chain Frost is a guaranteed way of 9 times out of 10, I should say, way of clearing those heroes both, and keeping initiative to then remove stuff in the next lane. That's kind of the primary use of it. And typically you don't care a tremendous amount about boards getting wide in the list that we're building. The biggest reason for that is we're running Cheat Death. So if the board gets wide, all that means is, like, we're going to get wide too, because our shit is not going to die. But on top of that, we have the option to clear things that are genuinely threatening through removal spells. And a bunch of 2/1s hitting your tower, not necessarily the biggest deal, especially once we get to items. We're going to talk a little bit about the game plan there. But I think it's unlikely we have to be too concerned about particularly wide boards. Plus, that's a very small slice of the meta. And as you have perhaps seen, like, if I was building this for a tournament this coming weekend, right? I would maybe anticipate less blue-green than last week, because it didn't perform well in the Artifact Shark tournament. But, if we're seeing less blue-green, and that's your rationale for keeping Lich, and I don't think it accomplishes too much either.
Well, let's try it with the Sniper, as you suggested. That will it's a good idea. Plus, this helps, make a bit more of a budget deck, one less rare hero, if that's your concern. Obviously not really for right now, but just interesting note. But anyway, so that then gives us the main deck. So our 5 heroes like this. Also, still, I understand that Sniper is pretty good in the 5 position as well, because you can probably position him in such a way that he's unlikely to die, so that you can get off his ability on the next turn. That's generally my understanding.
Yeah, possibly. To be honest, it's harder to keep him alive than you might think in a lot of situations.
I think that it's pretty hard to keep him alive.
It can actually be pretty reasonable playing him on turn 2, expecting him to die, so that he deploys with it active straight away.
Okay.
Right? And with the deck that we're running, we're pretty control-y. We have Corrosive Mists to reset any crazy gold swings that happen. having him just be a chump blocker and die isn't necessarily the end of the world.
Okay, that's fair.
But that doesn't mean I think he should be on the turn deployment. I'm just saying, placing him second or third is more equitable either way than it might appear.
Yeah, but I think that Drow is just almost always. I mean, obviously, I haven't actually played the games enough to know, but I imagine that it's almost always correct to have her on turn 2, right?
It certainly is often reasonable, but I think she functions pretty solidly on turn 1 too. Sure, sometimes you have a bad matchup where she dies, but typically decks with Drow aren't trying to win that quickly unless they're Salamene Storm. So again, losing her early and having her be able to be deployed later alongside another hero can just give you more flexibility. So plus, if she does survive on turn 1, you're getting value for longer. I think it's pretty equivalent playing her first or second.
Okay. So how about we talk a little bit about the items? So I'm partly just really find the hourglass to be really cool. I don't think that I don't know exactly how good it is. It's just a card that as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, this seems like a really fun one to mess around with. Blink Dagger, as I understand it, almost every deck plays at least 2 copies of this. And given the fact that we don't have any other mobility effects right now, it feels probably like a necessary inclusion.
Yeah, I think Blink Dagger is a pretty easy 2 or 3 of in this deck. I think 3 is fine. The Hourglass is a more interesting consideration, actually, because we are running Corrosive Mists. I like it. I think it's probably worth having 2,
sure,
but I wouldn't run 3. And you're kind of hoping to play them maybe after you've already blown your opponent out with a Corrosive Mist. A similar kind of thing is that I actually think 1 Vesture of the Tyrant is probably worth having. My philosophy on the item deck is to kind of treat it as if you're not playing economy as an archetype, treat it kind of like a sideboard and say like, okay, what are the holes that I need to patch up in this deck, right? Vesture, certainly very useful against things like Salamene Storm, but also for your weaker heroes like Sniper, maybe bringing him back routinely is good. Then I would run, on top of those things, probably 1 Obliterating Orb and 2 Demagicking Mauls. I think the biggest problem that your deck is going to have is that it doesn't have solid improvement removal. It can't go the economy route of maybe hoping to get an Apotheosis Blade late. And it also can't, it doesn't have red in it, so it can't inherently have improvement removal. So I think that getting the Demagicking Mauls is good. You have a lot of removal that can clear the way so you can be facing the tower. And 1 Obliterating Orb is, I think, very important. In certain matchups, you're going to be wanting to save your gold, and you'll be hoping that you'll see that item.
But okay. So this makes sense to me. It is kind of rampy. So it's ramping really into the steam cannons is our game plan. So this to me seems like a really good deck against something like a control deck, because I imagine that the steam cannons are really good against a blue deck that has these kind of flimsy heroes. Probably even if we have a mediocre early game, Corrosive Mist can kind of bail us out of that a little bit. And then also just Unearthed Secrets, and I guess also Unearthed Secrets plus ramp is in kind of a plan as well, because we're just going to have enough cards to be able to maximize and use our mana properly.
Yeah, this deck seems reasonable. I don't necessarily think it's the best possible permutation of green-black, but it's an interesting idea that I'd be down to try for sure.
Well, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it seems to be a start. But thank you very much for joining me today. This was very interesting. I learned a lot. Is there anything that you want to tell us about of your projects that you're up to on our way out the door?
Check out my YouTube channel. Hope you enjoy the content. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'll have some updates soon about a couple of cool projects that I'm working on.
Looking forward to that. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.